What is up, you beautiful people of the internet? I am Wesley, and today we are jumping back into the wild world of TierZoo. I'm immensely excited. One of my favorite historical periods is the Ice Age, and today we are going to take a look at TierZoo's Ice Age tier list. I am biased. If I'm not going to lie to you guys, I love saber-tooth tigers. I don't know why exactly. Particularly, I have no idea why the protrusions of the teeth in a tiger excites me so much, but it always has since I was a very little boy, so I'm really hoping they're going to be S tier. Now, I doubt it. I'm not expecting them to place particularly highly, but like, damn, I'm rooting for the home team. I'm like that fan that roots for their team even when they suck, because I'm a real fan. But hey, if we can just make a good showing, I'll be happy with it, because I know my saber-tooth boys tried their damned hardest. That being said, subscribe for more reactions, and let's go. I missed it! Oh, giant sloth, baby. The animals were just cooler back then, man. The animals were just way cooler. Straight up.
After the dinosaurs were nerfed, a lot of niches were left wide open. The power vacuum created a lot of pretty janky builds, most of which ended up getting nerfed in the final Ice Age balance patch.
Aww.
But nonetheless, some of the most interesting and unique builds of all time were part of the quaternary meta.
Yo, aren't those just normal elephants? I didn't come here, TierZoo, I didn't come here for normal ass, vanilla ass, boring ass elephants. I came here for some fluffy, some hairy, beastie, woolly mammoths. Boo!
And so I think it's time to finally create the Ice Age tier list. It's tough to make a fair tier list simply because just about every build that went extinct can directly or indirectly blame humans.
Oh yeah.
Humans unlocking projectile weapons gave them such an oppressive advantage over large mammals.
There we go.
That they became totally
There's
unstoppable
a fluffy
in
elephant.
any server that lacked the proper counters. But since you should already be fully aware of how OP humans are, we're gonna kind of skip past them in this tier list and talk.
I like you should be fully aware of this. This video got 4.7 million views. So if you didn't watch it, who and what rock were you living under, you loser?
Talk about the other great builds from the Ice Age meta. As always, we'll start from the bottom of the tier list and move up from there.
If Sabertooth is
in
an
F
F tier,
we have the Megalosaurus, aka the giant deer build. This build holds the record for most evolution points put into the antlers ability. Now, I've talked about the concept of diminishing returns before on this channel. For example, discussing how the poison dart frog having toxins that are strong enough to drop an elephant is probably a bit of overkill. But in that case, it's not that being too poisonous is a problem. It's just that some of those evolution points probably would have been better spent somewhere else.
No. See, infect player want to infect. If any of my Magic the Gathering boys and girls out there know what I'm talking about. Infect player want infect. Poison good. Poison thing. Infect thing. That it. Everything else irrelevant. Infect, poison.
But in the case of the giant deer,
nothing else matters.
Not only is this level of antler growth excessive, it's genuinely detrimental.
It looks like it's
First
trying
of all,
to take
antlers
off.
have a significant...
No, that's the thing. It was trying to spec into flight. It was like, hey, if we get these antlers big enough, maybe we can have a glider effect. We'll just start galloping when the cheetahs are chasing us, and we'll take flight, saving us. That's really what they were after. They just never got to finish it because humans effed them up.
Significant equipment load cost. Sprinting, fighting, or really just any everyday action costs more stamina when you're weighed down by heavy antlers, increasing the deer's food requirements and causing it to require rest more frequently.
Can you imagine riding one of those in a battle?
Antlers do break in combat quite frequently. While they're certainly powerful enough to defend from carnivore players, their purpose is to give male players a way to complete the alpha male and mating side quests, and are frequently broken during these challenges. With normal-sized antlers, this isn't too big an issue, but when they each weigh 40 pounds, a break to one antler might also mean a break to the neck, or at the very least, make it tough to maintain your balance. Lastly, deer rely on...
Imagine one antler breaks off, and so when they're running, they can only turn left. That's how we ended up with Zoolander, funnily enough.
On stealth and mobility to evade attacks. The most common line of play is for deer to run to the safety of the forest, where they can hide much more effectively.
Go Bambi!
Not only do antlers make it harder to run and make you stick out like a sore thumb, but their enormous hitbox makes it impossible to enter dense forest, a potentially game-ending limitation. Giant deer may have been nerfed in power and HP, but they were one of the few builds that were actually buffed overall in the final Ice Age balance patch. In D tier we have the Calicotherium, a horse build that spec'd into tree browsing.
Horse? This is a horse build? I would have thought like 7 infantine animals, I was like, this is clearly a bear or a sloth or a horse build. This is a freaking horse? Are you on crack? What? This is not a horse. What?
And four-limb claws, similar to the giant ground sloth. PBS Eons has already done an awesome video on the Calicotheres, so I won't spend too much time on them. But I will say that unfortunately, unlike the ground sloth, Calicotheres were significantly worse at combat than the giant sloths that they were trying to conquer, and frequently got bodied by predators that ground sloths would have had no trouble fending off. I don't have too much else to say about this build, but yeah, horse mains, you've got a good thing going, you don't need to copy other builds.
That was
In
weird.
C tier, we have the Terror Bird.
Guys! We got all the way to C tier, and Sabretooth hasn't dropped yet. And you know that's the damned most iconic animal from the Ice Age. So if it was there, it would have been covered already. Boys! Boys! We're upper tier! Yes!
Terror Birds are basically an attempt to recreate the dinosaur build after non-avian dinosaurs were banned in the Cretaceous-Paleogene balance
So like
patch.
chibis from Final
Credit
Fantasy.
where credit is due, it does do a decent job.
Chocobos!
Terror Birds were actually pretty OP in the early post-dino meta, having
Really?
the best mobility and power at the time. However, as the meta progressed towards the Ice Age, mammal
Yes!
builds finally unlocked better defensive and offensive tools to combat this playstyle. And while their high damage pack attack could still bring down a large mammal in a few hits, its damage is completely negated by armor, failing where a pre-patched dinosaur's crushing bite would have had no trouble. Mammals eventually developed high damage attacks of their own, leaving the Terror Bird player base with only one solid advantage, being able to stand on two legs. This is actually a pretty significant advantage, but it's best used in conjunction with powerful grasping or slashing forelimbs, a trait Terror Birds fail to take advantage of. Speaking of armor, next up on the tier list,
I just love how the Terror Bird sashay is just like, you can't touch me, I'm a Terror Bird.
is the Glyptodon, the best armored build of the Ice Age meta.
Armor.
Glyptodons were pretty safe from predators.
Dude, there's like almost no good armor builds in modern times, eh? Like, I guess it depends on what your criteria are, but if we're going like PvP, there's not really a lot of good ones. There's like turtles, armadillos, but they don't really fight things. They just kind of go away. Leave me alone.
Being able to block attacks from most
Snapping
of the
turtle,
weapons
maybe?
at the time. They also possessed two
Whoa.
powerful offensive moves, the first being Skull Bash and the second being Club Smash.
Ooh, Club
Move
Smash.
reminiscent of the Ankylosaurus, although nowhere near as strong.
Sheesh.
They weren't by any means below average builds, but as a tank roll, I don't think they were near oppressive enough in terms of area denial for me to rate them any higher than B tier. Also in B tier, we have the Woolly Rhinoceros, a more powerful version of the modern-day Rhino build.
He's
Rhinos
stacking.
themselves
That's not a
are
good
tank
sign for
variation of
Sabretooth,
the horse
boys.
build, and personally, I don't see them as particularly viable in the modern-day meta, due to a combination of two reasons: low intelligence and poor eyesight.
Oh,
This
that's
combination makes it very difficult for the rhino to determine friend from foe, and as a result, rhinos often team kill each other.
Really?
They're hyper-aggressive, often attacking anything that they detect in their territory, which can include ridiculous things such as trees, rocks, and termite mounds. Anyways, I wouldn't put modern...
Well, I mean, if the tree didn't want to get, effed up, bro, it shouldn't have been in the rhino's territory. Rhino territory, not tree territory, not grass territory, not air territory. Rhino hit air. If Rhino knew what air was, Rhino would fight air in its territory too. Rhino territory. Only Rhino territory. No food territory, no water territory.
Day rhinos any higher than D tier, but woolly rhinos, despite having the same issues, are powerful enough to earn a spot in B tier.
They're just so damn
just because of how
stupid and
important
strong.
Defense and offense was
They just
for
kill
a long
everything?
time. With the power creep starting to reach dinosaur levels, being able to defend yourself was critical, and the woolly rhinoceros had perhaps the most threatening weapon in the entire game
They
at
look
the
like
time.
fencers.
Last in B tier, we have the dire wolf. Dire wolves were
Oh
the
man, he
premier
is stacking B tier, boys. I don't think the chances of us getting it much higher are very good,
pack
y'all.
hunting build of the Ice Age meta. They were more powerful than any of the
Dire
canine
wolf.
builds today, but actually on the weaker side when it comes to dogs throughout the Cenozoic
Really?
meta. Earlier on, during the Oligocene and Miocene expansions that came just before the Ice Age,
The background
there were
music's so
even
good.
stronger dogs, like the Borophagine and bear dogs. And yet it seems like the player base has constantly been shifting towards smaller, less powerful canine builds that were more agile and efficient. I think the reason for this is that the canine class in general is just best suited to the pack hunting strategy. Team strategy is perhaps the best way to take on builds above your weight class, but the thing to keep in mind is that if you're teaming up with other carnivore players, you'll need to split the loot from your kills. This gets to be a problem if your entire team is playing as the larger, more powerful dogs,
Oh, that
because
makes
they have a
sense.
much higher food cost. Since pack hunting is still plenty effective even when the individual members of a pack aren't particularly strong, It makes sense why the dire wolf player base eventually shifted towards the smaller gray wolf build. Still, at the time, they were...
Honestly, that was not nearly as big of a size difference as I was expecting. If those were to scale, that was not... I mean, I was expecting a reduction of size of at least like 25%. That looked like maybe 10%. That was not that different.
Force to be reckoned with. Although they often were unable to defend their kills from the more powerful solo DPS builds of the Ice Age.
Oof.
All in all, not top tier, but by no means low tier.
The Starks are in the comments now just screaming, "What are you talking about? Direwolf's the best!"
Alright, so in 18...
Oh, actually, the Baratheons... No, the Starks are like, okay, we'll take a B. The Baratheons are just like absolutely rage, writing huge walls of text about how the deer are F tier.
By no means low tier. Alright, so in A tier, we've reached builds that are all pretty much unimpeachably overpowered, and would still likely rule the meta today, if not for the absolutely broken build that is the human. First, let's talk about the most famous build from the Ice Age, the Mammoth.
The most famous? And Sabertooth's a freaking joke to you? Every kid, Sabertooth are the most famous. But maybe we're an S tier, baby. We might be an S tier, baby. Fingers crossed.
Have the highest HP of any Ice Age build, and also some top tier gear, second only to the Woolly Rhino. Mammoths, as well as elephants today, also had one of the most unique abilities ever seen in the game, a trunk. Choosing between a quadrupedal and bipedal build is a difficult choice. Quadrupeds are much more stable and tend to have higher run speeds, but using all four limbs to walk means you can't use them to grab or pick up items. Proboscideans like mammoths and elephants subvert this issue by putting enough points into the nose skill tree to unlock the trunk, basically giving themselves a fifth appendage.
I love watching elephants move.
This is an extremely powerful...
All the boys in the comments are like, "Girl, I'll show you my fifth appendage." Hey!
...and versatile ability that easily earns them a high tier spot.
Get out of here.
The only thing keeping them down is that they had an absolutely abysmal matchup versus humans. While many
like
of the
everybody,
Ice Age mid-tier and top tiers had an unfavorable matchup against humans, the Mammoths was especially terrible, because they're such a big target and worth so much XP.
Oh,
at the top end of A tier is the other Ice Age All-Star, the Sabertooth.
Yes!
In terms of critical hit damage, nothing else even comes close to what Sabers can dish out. Sabers actually had a different playstyle than the big cats of present day. Their lower agility made it tough for them to chase down prey, and so they had to use stealth not just to get close, but to get literally within range of a strike. They could take down basically anything that they wanted, but it's important to note that due to how fragile their fangs are, they couldn't use them in combat to deal damage to their foes.
Really?
They were reserved specifically for finishing off a downed player. Their high power stat comes more from their bulky front limbs than from their teeth. While few builds could stand up to them, they did have a poor matchup against the next two builds on the list, the top tiers. The first S tier is...
We're not S tier. Okay, boys. It's okay, boys. I got my heart set. I said as long as we were in the upper side, I'd be happy. But I thought we might reach the hallowed ground, the sanctity of S tier. That's all right. That's all right. We'll take our A tier and we'll take it with grace. Silver medals are still good.
The giant ground sloth, a build I've discussed at length in my video about why sloths aren't OP anymore. But to recap,
they kind of suck.
They could body just about anyone in a 1v1 match.
Really?
And because they were one of the few mammals to pull off bipedalism correctly, they were much less vulnerable to stealth-based approach strategies due to their height. Check out this video for more info on it. Last on our list is the cave bear. Cave bears just had insane stats across the board.
Forgot about the bears.
And here's the kicker. They were scavengers.
Really?
You can't just put these kinds of stats on a scavenger.
Why?
A bear this big could steal kills from entire packs of dire wolves or saber-tooths all by itself.
Get out of here.
But if there weren't any chumps around to do the bear's work for it, the bear could either take down some huge quarry by itself, or simply fall back on the numerous herbivorous options available to it. It's obvious that the devs had to nerf this build because it had basically no weaknesses. It's the only build on this list that humans are almost certainly not responsible for the extinction of. In fact, the reasons for the bear player base shifting towards the smaller bear builds aren't well understood by data miners at this point. All we do know is that when they were in the game, they were absolutely broken during a meta full of broken builds. If you like learning about builds from past
bears are terrifying.
there are tons of documentaries I'd recommend. My favorite is the Walking With series, including Walking.
I kind of wanted to hear more about these sloths. I think we're gonna have to watch that sloth video, guys, because I have a hard time. Like, sloths suck. Let's just be honest. So old sloths are just absolute unparalleled badasses in an era of badasses. That's weird. The cave bear is scary as crap, but it just looks like a big old bear, doesn't it? So, like, I get that. But, like, the sloths, if you made a modern sloth bigger, it would still be trash, right? I don't know. I just don't get it. We'll have to learn more. It did have those claws, which were looking pretty gnarly. But that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful day. We've done a few different TierZoo reactions. So if you want to see more, check them out on the channel. Otherwise, subscribe for more reactions. We react to a variety of content. But I love you guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Take care of yourself. I'm Wesley, and I'm